Hi, and welcome to the February 2026 installment of the Microsoft Product Licensing Terms from the version 1 Software Asset Management team. Hi, Neve, William, Dan, how are things?
Good.
Very
Good.
So, quiet enough month this month on the Microsoft product terms, but some interesting updates from Microsoft outside of the terms. William, what have you found this month?
Right. So Microsoft, they've announced and released details of pricing increases to Office, Frontline and Enterprise subscription suites taking effect from the 1st of July 2026. So existing customers, just to bear in mind, remain on their current pricing until they actually renew. And the percentages varies quite dramatically between 5% on Microsoft 365 E5, 8% on E3, and then basic and standard edition. So for the non-enterprise SKUs, that's 17 and 22% respectively. And the big hit is on the F SKUs, which is the front line. So F3 is going up 25% and F1 is going up 33%, which is quite a hike. Admittedly, they're lower price entry points, but still a third increase. It's quite a big jump. So as always, essentially, as we always recommend, effective management of users and licenses, and which licenses are assigned to those users is never more apt than at the moment. So ensuring that the appropriate user and the role have the necessary license aligned to what they need it for. And also relevant to CSP customers is to basically review renewal dates that are coming up, and whether some of those renewals can be brought forward to make sure that price increases can be locked in before the 1st of July update, but to also compensate for some of those increases. Microsoft are adding certain features to some of the SKUs, and they're calling these packaging updates. So customers will receive at least 30 days notice on in the message center and admin in their admin portal before the changes come into effect in their tenant, because it's going to be rolled out globally bit by bit. The changes. Office 365 E1, so that's receiving what's called URL time of click protection. So that's basically if you get a link in an email, then Microsoft will test that before it actually activates. So that's quite an important feature. And there's some Copilot chat enhancements and chat analytics, and that's the same for Office 365 E3 and E5, and also the Microsoft 365 E5. So they're getting those enhancements, but also E3 is getting Defender for Office Plan 1, and also getting Intune Remote Help, Intune Advanced Analytics, and Intune Plan 2. And E5 is getting all of those, plus Intune Endpoint Privilege Management, Cloud PKI, and Intune Enterprise Application Management, which were all paid for add-on features beforehand. So on the security front, really, that's where the packaging updates are being applied, and that's going to be rolled out from sort of June, July onwards across the globe. So price increases, but also feature increases.
Thanks, William. So I just looked at the very short update that Microsoft made to Microsoft Dragon Copilot. So for Dragon Copilot, they've added Dragon Copilot physician practice per user to the Microsoft Customer Agreement or MCA availability table. So that essentially formalizes how the SKU is purchased and made available under MCA licensing. In addition, a couple of small, very subtle changes. Microsoft introduced an extra contractual clause to clarify how tenant deployments are handled. And this kind of, I guess you could say, it removes the ambiguity around where and how Dragon Copilot can be deployed within customer environment, which is particularly important for healthcare organizations, say managing multiple tenants or practice structures. So while this isn't really a technical product change this month, it's a meaningful commercial and contractual update. So especially for healthcare providers evaluating Dragon Copilot under MCA. I did look at changes that Microsoft made to Mac, which I'll come back to towards the end of the recording. So Dan, over to you. What did you see this month? Anything of interest?
Yeah, so there was a change to the Microsoft Power Platform. They've basically been streamlining its data policies across the Copilot ecosystem by updating grounding with Bing terms in Copilot Studios to match the Microsoft 365 Copilot data query terms. So this change creates like a consistent approach to how Copilot experiences, retrieves and use web data, improving clarity for teams, tightening governance for organizations. The revised terms went live on the 1st of February 2026, and its translations were published shortly after on the 9th. And then one thing that wasn't in the product terms, but obviously was a quite a big change, was to Power App SKUs. So effective of the 2nd of January 2026, the Power Apps per app SKU is no longer available for purchase by new customers. So existing enterprise customers using the licenses will see no distribution and can continue to use and renew this SKU under their current agreement when it ends. And then during the term of your enterprise agreement, you can add, adjust to users at any time without having to place individual purchase orders, and accounts for changing through the annual process.
Existing CSP customers will not be impacted.
They can continue to use and renew their Power Apps per app subscriptions, and then for existing MPSA customers, the SKU will no longer be offered. Their agreements will remain active and they can continue using the Power Apps per app license until the agreement ends. But after that, they'll have basically a 60-day window to migrate to an alternative solution.
Thanks, Dan. Niamh, over to you.
Yeah, Microsoft have added Defender for Endpoint Plan 2 add-on for Microsoft 365 E3 and Microsoft Entra ID P2 add-on for Microsoft 365 E3 to the MCA table and the license prerequisites table. And this is a really interesting one because, and I'll get into it, it's kind of an obvious one, is that like Defender for Endpoint Plan 2 is like kind of a Russian doll. It contains all the features of Defender for Endpoint Plan 1, which is included with M365 E3. And similarly with Entra ID P2. So number one, I guess it makes sense that, for any customers that aren't ready to move to either the full E5 suite or to the full kind of security and compliance suites, E5 security and compliance suite, that you have like an add-on now for 365 E3, but it's just interesting that it's only available under the MCA or CSP kind of program right now. So I'm wondering, will it be made available for enterprise customers too, or is there kind of something else coming down the line in that respect? So that's interesting. It makes sense. And it goes to show that the P2 kind of level services aren't going to be wrapped into E3 as we've seen with some of the other E5 or higher tier kind of security and compliance services. So yeah, I guess watch the space. There's a lot of kind of a lot of kind of juggling of services, whether they get included or they're now kind of being turned into add-ons. And look, maybe it makes sense from a Microsoft point of view in terms of enticing customers to kind of take up higher level services. So that's pretty much it from me for this month, Carl. Thanks.
Thanks, Niamh. So finally, let's talk about the important update Microsoft made with regards to the Azure consumption commitments, or what many of us still call MACs. So since early 2026, just a number of weeks ago, I think it was probably towards the end of January, early February, Microsoft has shifted how these commitments are structured and referenced. So first, we're seeing them increasingly described as cloud consumption commitments in official documentation. So essentially what we're seeing is a rebranding and repositioning. But I think most importantly, there's a contractual shift. So new and renewing commitments are moving under the MCAE, or Microsoft Customer Agreement for Enterprise motion, which is a direct motion with Microsoft rather than traditional enterprise agreements. So that's a significant change, because it basically changes how commitments are going to be governed, renewed, and potentially how shortfalls and milestones are handled, because you're going to have a much more direct relationship with Microsoft. So from a measurement perspective, the core tracking remains in Azure Cost Management, monitoring eligible spend, decrement, events, remaining balances, etc. But enforcement and contracting frameworks around those commitments is going to be evolving. So if you're planning renewal of your Mac, negotiating a new Azure deal, or managing large-scale consumption targets, it's definitely worth reviewing how this new structure is going to affect your organization, and the associated commercial strategy. At version 1, we've been engaging with customers and helping them plan for and renew Mac agreements or Mac enrollments over the last number of years. So if you have any questions specifically on this transition, feel free to reach out to us here, and we can help you look at, you know, the risks and benefits of these changes and how you can plan for the possible transition. So that about wraps things up for this month's Microsoft Product Licensing Terms update. As always, if you have any questions or queries off the back of today's session, if you have any Microsoft licensing questions or licensing queries across any other vendors, should I say, please feel free to reach out to us here. So until next month, Niamh, Dan, William, thanks again for your input.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.